I got it.
We're live.
Okay, start.
Hello. Sorry guys for the long wait. We had technical difficulties. So my name is Taran Vallabhaneni. I'm the Undersecretary General for Policy for Oakridge Junior Model United Nations 2016. Avi?
Yeah, guys, I'm Avyakt. I'm the Director General for OakJMUN 2016.
So
Right, 1 second. Right, guys, if you can hear us, can one of you post a question saying that you can hear us?
it
Guys?
says 5 viewers now.
How are you seeing that? Is anyone there? Darn, can they hear us, Darn?
How do I answer a question? Guys. Avi, can you quit
You want me to quit?
for 1 minute?
Sure. I have the stop broadcast button. Why is that?
It's not letting me answer questions.
If I leave, it's gonna end the broadcast. Do you know that? That's what it's saying. So no. No, it won't allow us to answer the questions. We have to answer them verbally. Guys, if any of you can hear us, please post a question saying that you can hear us.
Guys, we started.
Hey, I'm using another account, and it keeps on saying watch this video on YouTube. Playback on other websites has been disabled by the video owner.
Okay, wait, is that what it's saying?
Yeah, that's what it's saying when I'm opening it on my account.
Right then, give me a second. I think I know how to fix that.
You guys, we're on YouTube, please.
We have 8 on the call. We got one message saying, "Hey, I'm there."
Saying hey, he's there, or hey, he can hear us.
Hey, I'm there. I don't know. It's on YouTube or something. Hey, I'm there.
Saying hey, he's there, or hey, he can hear us.
Hey, I'm there. I don't know. It's on YouTube or something. Yeah, we're live on YouTube. Hey, I'm there.
Saying hey, he's there, or hey, he can hear us.
Hey, I'm there. I don't know.
What? What? Wait, Don, are you hearing that?
Yeah, we're
Yes.
live on YouTube. Hey, I'm there. You guys hear me? Sorry, Navi.
Guys, we're on YouTube, please. So 15 people are watching. So, guys, any questions, please put them up. Yeah, we can hear you. So 15 people are watching. So, Guys, any questions, please put them up.
Who is playing us back to us?
Yeah, we can hear you. So firstly, this isn't a joke, guys. We're going to be starting the webinar right now. We're going to start answering all the questions. This webinar will be going on for about the next 1 hour. So any questions related to the rules of procedure or about the conference itself, please send them in the question answer app. So firstly, do all of us have to be there for the full day for all 3 days of the conference? Guys, we've released the conference schedule. There will be debates starting from about 9 o'clock and ending around 4 o'clock. But on the second day, we will be having a delegate dance. This delegate dance will last till about 7:30. Next, can we have the background guides? The background guides are put up on the separate committee pages. Please visit OakJMUN.in and go to your separate committee.
Right, are computers allowed? Yes, computers are allowed. You can use them in committee, but you're not permitted to use internet in committee unless specifically said so by the executive board, which will normally be done only in breaks.
So any more viewers, just keep texting your questions. Next question. When should this position paper be submitted and what is the format of the position paper? Avi?
Right. Okay, so position papers, we expect you to submit them on Thursday, which is the night before the conference, obviously. You send them to your executive board's emails. And the format, well, there is no specific format, as in we can't tell you what to write, but the general format that we try to follow is you put your first paragraph as the introduction to your agenda. Then you write another paragraph on your country's stance on the agenda and how your country relates to the agenda. And then a short paragraph on some solutions to the agenda that your country would like to see implemented. And then finally a conclusion. So this is just a broad outline. You can expand on it, cut down on it, but it should generally be 1 page to 1.5 pages long.
And please focus on your solutions as one of the board sees are your solutions and how creative they are. Next, what is the main difference in the content between the GSL speech and the position paper? Now, the GSL speech is your opening speech in the committee. What the GSL speech basically starts out with is your stance on the agenda. This opening speech has to give your own views to the whole committee. You could include your country's stance and a few solutions as well. And you have a time limit of 90 seconds. But your position paper, however, as just explained, would be a paper consisting of your country's stance towards the agenda, your solutions to the agenda, what your country has done to the agenda, and a general introduction to the agenda.
Right, next, we have a couple questions asking for the agendas. All the agendas are on the website. Go to OakJMUN.in and you go to your committee page. Your agenda will be clearly stated there. And the background guides, most of them are out. The rest will be coming out as soon as possible. You can bring your own internet device as well to connect to the internet, but again, it's not allowed in committee. You can use it in like breaks and sometimes in unmoderated caucuses if the chair allows. But other than that, internet devices aren't allowed to be used in committee.
Your next question, is there a specific dress code? Yes, there is a specific dress code. You would have to wear Western formals. This does include a blazer, a tie, a necktie, and formal shoes. We won't be allowing sneakers. On the second day, however, we will be allowing ethnic wear, which would be ethnic wear of India, which would be a kurta for guys. So please note, it's Western formals on the first and third day, and on the second day, it's Indian ethnic wear. We have started the stream. Many questions about that. Background guides are on the committee's page. You will get it if you visit OakJMUN.in.
Right. Okay. So we have another question saying that being you can watch it from the Hangout. So click on the icon there.
Next, how long can the general speaker's speech be? So considering your general speaker's list speech is your opening speech, you will have 90 seconds to give your views to the committee. You don't have to speak for the whole of 90 seconds. If you, the executive board will not allow you to exceed your time limit. However, if you finish before the time limit, say for example, you speak for 60 seconds, you still have 30 seconds remaining, you can yield your remaining time. Now the ways you can yield is, number one, yield to the chair, which is you finish speaking, even though you have 30 seconds, we're gonna finish. You yield to the chair and you just go back and sit down. Second is yield to points of informations. If you yield to points of informations, people will ask you questions depending on how much time you have left on your speech. Next, you can yield to another delegate. Again, yielding to another delegate depends on how much time you have left. Once you're done speaking and you have 30 seconds left, if you yield to another delegate, that delegate would have to speak for the remaining 30 seconds. Please note that if you yield to another delegate, that delegate should know that you yielded to them beforehand. Why Indian ethnic wear on second day? Indian ethnic wear on the second day because we have the social night on the second day, and we believe that it's a better dress code for the second day. So you could come in Western formals as well, but we'd prefer you wear Indian ethnic wear. What does the introduction speech include? The introduction speech should mainly include your country's stance on the agenda, what your country has done so far, and if you need, some of your solutions.
Now, obviously, the introduction speech is essentially whatever you want to say, but it's basically just you telling committee what you want from committee and what your country wants. So it's a very useful way to get allies, to let other people know your stance. And the chairs also look favorably upon it if you have a very good introduction speech.
Please send us email ID for sending the position papers. So you could send the position papers to secgen@oakjmun.in. We will be forwarding it to your respective directors. Next, are computers allowed? Yes, computers are allowed at the conference, but you are not allowed to use Wi-Fi at the conference. If using Wi-Fi, the directors will be forced to gag you. Using Wi-Fi will be a serious offense during committee. Not only Wi-Fi, any internet device. So you could store all your research on your computer beforehand, but using any data device during the conference is strictly not allowed.
Right, guys, so we're going to just generally go over rules of procedure in general because there's a lot of questions on the basic rules of procedure. So, Tarn, you want to start?
Yes. I'm sorry, you will just answer a few more. Can we bring our phone instead of our laptops? Yes, you can bring your phone instead of your laptops, but again, no using any 3G or 4G or data. Well, we have to bring a research binder. That is completely up to you. Research binders, you could bring them or you could store everything on your computer as long as you don't use any internet. Next, when will we get the ID card saying your countries? This is called the placard, which will have your country's name on it. You will get the placard at the conference itself. What exactly do you have to speak apart from the GSL in the conference? So this is where we're going to go over the basic rules of procedure. So you could keep sending questions, but try listening to us. And
we'll answer your questions, of course.
But only after we're done with each section, ask questions on that section. Next, where will the MUN take place? The MUN will take place in Oakridge Newton campus, Gachibowli. So Avi, can you start with the GSL?
Right, okay. So actually I'll start with the roll call first, which is the first thing that happens in committee. It's pretty simple. When you get to class, your teacher takes attendance, right? It's essentially the same thing. The chair will read out a list of all the countries present, and you have to either say present or present and voting. So now present essentially means that when you're voting for final resolutions, which we'll go over later, you can say yes, no, or you can abstain, meaning that you don't want to vote. If you say present and voting, you have to say yes or no. We'll go over this in more detail later on, so you don't have to worry about that too much. But following that, the committee moves into what's called a general speakers list, or GSL for short. So this is essentially a 90-second speech that anyone can give. And in this time, you can technically say whatever you want, right? But in the GSL, it's recommended in your first GSL to give an introduction speech on your committee's stance, on your country's stance, and some general solutions. If you want, later on in the committee, you can use general speakers list to talk about whatever is going on in committee at the time, or to direct a debate in whatever direction you choose. The general speakers list is very important because delegates can keep adding their names to it how many ever times they want. But if the general speakers list ends with no speakers left on the list, the whole committee closes. So it's very important that delegates are always speaking on the general speakers list. The general speakers list will close at the chair's discretion, at which point we'll move on to other motions. And at any time in committee, the general speakers list will resume if there's nothing else to talk about. So now following the general speakers list, you'll have multiple types of motions that you can raise. A motion in an MUN is essentially just your method to raise whatever you want. If you want to end committee, you have to have a motion. If you want to move into various types of caucuses, you have to have a motion. The two most common motions that you will be raising are motion for a moderated caucus and motion for an unmoderated caucus.
Caucus. 1 second, because we're done with this section, we will be taking question and answers on that section.
Right. First is the GSL compulsory. The GSL is not compulsory. You don't have to speak on it. The GSL is compulsory in the sense it will happen no matter if you're not speaking on it or if you're speaking on it. And it's highly recommended that you speak on it, but you don't have to speak on it.
Next, is the position paper necessary? Yes, the position paper is necessary if you want to be eligible for awards. Please note that you would have to send your position paper in by this Thursday. Would we get free Wi-Fi? So Wi-Fi is strictly not allowed. Any type of data is not allowed.
And if you want to use it in the breaks, you have to bring your own Wi-Fi. Also, how many points will be appointed in the GSL? I'm going to assume you're asking about the chairs marking, and that we can't really tell you because the chairs mark by their own standards. But generally, it'll be good if you sound confident, if you speak knowledgeably, and the best thing to do would be to yield any time possible to questions, as it shows that you know your stuff and that you can answer if anyone questions you.
So what motions did we finish?
Just GSL so far.
Okay. So after appointing the GSL, say 5 speakers, there will be a time where the chair will ask, are there any points on the floor? Or are there any motions on the floor? Now, there are 4 points: point of personal privilege, point of inquiry, point of information, and point of order. Starting with point of personal privilege. A point of personal privilege is when someone feels certain discomfort, when you as a delegate feel some physical discomfort. Say you feel too cold, you would raise a point saying point of personal privilege. Could the executive board turn off the AC? Or you need to go to the bathroom. Point of personal privilege, the delegate of XYZ would like to be excused. Point of personal privileges can also be used if you need to, if you want someone to speak a little louder. Now, if you can't hear a delegate, interrupt the delegate, raise a point of personal privilege, and say, point of personal privilege, the delegate of XYZ would like the speaker to speak louder. Please note that point of personal privilege is the only point that can interrupt the speaker, but don't interrupt the speaker as it is extremely rude to everyone. Next is the point of order. The point of order is a point where if there's a mistake made by a delegate factually, or if there's a mistake made in the rules of procedure, you as a delegate can say, point of order, the delegate of XYZ has said this. For example, a delegate of Kenya says Obama is the president of Kenya, which is not true. Obama is the president of America. So you can raise a point of order saying, point of order, the delegate of Kenya has said President Obama is the president of Kenya. That is wrong. He is the president of USA. But please not raise a point of order if a delegate says he believes, because that is his opinion, and point of orders are only based on facts. Also, a point of order is used when there is a mistake made in the rules of procedure. So if there's any mistake made by the chair, don't hesitate to raise a point of order, but be completely sure before you do. Next is the point of inquiry. The point of inquiry is a major point which you guys will have to take down. It is mainly used to ask for any inquiries related to rules of procedure. If you're confused with one rule of procedure, raise a point of parliamentary inquiry and say the delegate of XYZ would like to raise a point of parliamentary inquiry and ask your question related to the rules of procedure. And finally, point of information. A point of information is basically a question on a delegate's speech. Now, say the delegate has released a statement and you have questions related to a statement, you could raise a point of information, but only if the chair accepts that point of information can you ask the delegate that question. So a point of information is basically a question on a delegate's speech. Now we'll be entertaining questions on all of the points. How will points be appointed in the GSL? Points
Yeah, I already answered that.
Yes. Guys,
Okay.
ask your questions on points right now, please. Any questions on points? What is yield to point of information? Now, yield to points of information is basically yielding to questions. If you have a question, you yield it to points of informations, and then various delegates can ask questions based on what you had just said. Do we have to pass notes to state a few of the points? No. After a few speakers, the chair himself will ask, are there any points on the floor? Are there any motions on the floor? There you can raise your points. I'm a bit confused about the point of order. Now, the point of order is basically when a delegate has made a factual error, strictly factual, and you know it is wrong, you can raise a point of order saying this delegate has made a mistake, and then state the mistake and then answer it. You can also raise a point of order on if the executive board has made a mistake in the rules of procedure. You can raise a point of order on the executive board.
Right. One thing to keep in mind about points of orders when they come to factual errors is that some countries have certain beliefs that other countries do not. Some countries may accuse other countries of certain things. When it comes to a country's opinion, you can't raise a point of order saying their opinion is wrong. Only if they state it's a fact, then you can raise a point of order.
Can you make points when somebody is speaking? No, sir, you can't make points when somebody is speaking because it's extremely rude to them. It interrupts them. However, you can raise a point of personal privilege only if you cannot hear a delegate. If you cannot hear him, you can interrupt him and raise a point of personal privilege, stating that the delegate would like to raise a point of personal privilege. The other delegate is not audible. Next, we're going to move on to motions right now. Avi?
Right. So now the first type of motion that I'm going to tell you about is a motion for an unmoderated caucus, right? So now here's how you'd raise that, okay? You would raise your placard when the chair asks for motions, and the chair will call on you. So the format for raising any motion is pretty much the same. The delegate of state your country would like to raise a motion for, now in this case, it's a moderated caucus, so for a moderated caucus. Now a moderated caucus is basically essentially the same as the GSL, but with a limited time and a certain subtopic of the agenda. So instead of the whole agenda, you're discussing a part of it. So say it's global warming. A subtopic could be carbon emissions. Or say it's heritage sites, it could be threats to heritage sites. So now you'd raise a moderated caucus on the topic of threats to heritage sites for a total time period of, and then for an individual speaker time of. So for example, for a total time of 10 minutes and an individual speaker time of 60 seconds. So now if you do that, the chair will ask for speakers and will recognize speakers. So now anyone will then get to speak for 60 seconds on the subtopic until the total time period of 10 minutes has elapsed. So now this is a very useful way of directing committee into a particular direction or onto a topic that you want the committee to discuss. If you stick to the GSL is very broad and anyone can literally talk about anything. But in a moderated caucus, they're focused on a certain topic that you have chosen for a certain time limit so that it won't drag on forever or it won't be too short. So yeah. Any questions on moderated caucuses?
Is a moderated caucus impromptu, or will we get time to do some research? Moderated caucuses are mainly impromptu, but if you researched on the agenda, you won't have trouble doing it. For example, a delegate can raise a moderated caucus of which you know the moderated caucus topic, so you would know what to speak on it. But if you don't know, if you don't have any research on that moderated caucus, you would have to listen to all the other delegates speak and then make your own speech, so it would be impromptu.
You don't have to speak in a moderated caucus. Say you have absolutely no research or you just don't want to talk. You could hypothetically just listen to others speak. So it's better not to speak than to speak and not say anything useful, as that would be looked down upon. And another question is, what is the max time for a moderated caucus? So the individual speaker's time typically would not exceed 2 minutes because, and the overall speaker time for the entire moderated caucus typically does not extend beyond 20 minutes. So 20 minutes and 2 minutes are just unofficial guidelines, and you could theoretically raise a motion for any length that you want with any speaker time that you want, but chairs will typically not accept motions for a longer time period than that. Right, so someone's also asking for more examples on subtopics for the protection of World Heritage Sites. I won't give you that because that's essentially helping you for your agenda. And it's part of committee is how well you can come up with moderated caucus topics and how you direct committee. So it's up to you to come up with subtopics. And it can literally be any threats, solutions, causes. All of these would be potential moderated caucus topics.
We continue with motions.
Right, okay. So the next type of motion that I'll tell you about is an unmoderated caucus. So you have moderated caucuses and unmoderated caucus. So like the name suggests, it's unmoderated. So you would raise a motion for an unmoderated caucus, similar how you'd raise one for a moderated caucus. You'd have a total time period, but no individual speaker time or no subtopic. Because a moderated caucus is essentially a time when everyone just gets up and talks informally to each other. There's no regulation. You can talk about whatever you want. So say I, the delegate of India, raise a motion for an unmoderated caucus for 15 minutes. If it passes for that 15 minutes, it's completely informal. You can do literally whatever you want. You can get up, talk to other delegates. You can convince them to your side of view. So since there's no subtopic and no regulation, it's a very easy way to talk to other delegates to put forward your ideas without any time limit or restraint or regulation. And this is mainly used towards the middle and end of committees because at that time you would be discussing to lobby to convince other delegates to your point of view, and when we get to it, to work on working papers and draft resolutions. So it's essentially like a break in committee to do committee work, right? It's a lot more free than moderated caucuses because it's not formal at all.
So right here we have a question. If you're unsure of what to say, the time of when the moderated caucus is asked, but later we come up with some points, will they allow us to speak? Now, sir, the format for raising a moderated caucus would be the delegate of XYZ would like to raise a moderated caucus on the topic XYZ for a total time period of -minutes, individual speaker time -minutes. Now, if I raise one for 20 minutes, total speaker time, and individual speaker time 1 minute, that is 20 speakers. Now, the chair would ask delegates if they would like to speak in this moderated caucus. Now, that is when you raise your placards and put your names on the moderated caucus list. Now, the chair will take approximately 7 people at a time. So if you get points later on, and the chair asks for any more speakers, if you raise your placard, the chair will recognize you.
You can speak multiple times in the same moderated caucus if not many people are speaking. And say the moderated caucus time has ended, but you still want to speak on it. Before the last speaker has spoken, the chair will ask for extensions. At this point, you can raise a motion to extend the present moderated caucus for a max of half the time of the original time. So say it was originally raised for 20 minutes, you can raise an extension for 10 minutes, and you can speak in that. Another question.
I think Suhas has just joined us. Suhas, why don't you introduce yourself?
All right, hi guys. My name is Suhas. I'm the Secretary General. If you do have any questions, I'll answer them. But for now, I'll leave it to Taran Navi.
Right. Another question. In unmoderated caucus, can we move out of the room? No, you can't. As I said, you have to stay in committee because it's discussion in committee. You can't leave committee unless it's to go to the bathroom or to get water, which would come under personal privilege.
Next, we have a question. What do you mean exactly by speaking on a subtopic in a moderated caucus? A moderated caucus is basically a subtopic on the agenda itself. So this would be speaking about more finer details of the agenda, which you don't want to be discussed in your GSL. If you can't talk about a certain topic in your GSL, you can make a more specialized topic and raise it as a moderated caucus.
Another question. Can we raise moderated caucuses how many ever times we want? Right. So okay. If you mean can we raise caucus multiple times, as long as you change the wording, that's fine. So say you could have a moderated caucus on the effects of carbon emissions, and you could raise that again if it failed. But if it passed, you would have to reword it in another way and then ask for that.
If you
could also
yeah,
go
so
ahead.
one thing that you could do is extend the same moderated caucus if you feel like there was more to discuss. So after the moderated caucus elapsed, you can raise a motion to extend that same moderated caucus.
And
So now another question: how are motions recognized? Now, after the chair asks for any points or motions, if delegates raise their placards for any motions, the chair will recognize about 3 to 4 motions. Now, there is something called the order of disruption. This is the way in which all motions are voted upon. Now, for a motion to pass, it needs to be voted upon by simple majority, which is 50% plus one delegate. If you want a motion to fail, simply vote against it. If a motion is recognized, the chair will then read the motion out to the whole committee and ask all delegates for this motion. If you want this motion to be passed, raise your placard. The chair will then ask all delegates against this motion. If there are a majority of people against this motion, it will fail.
Right, so we have a question. How many moderated caucuses can you raise at once? Each person, how many motions? So each individual delegate can only raise one motion at a time, and the chair will typically take 3 motions at the same time and vote on those.
To whom do I submit my position papers? Sir, we will be sending across an email with the list of emails of the directors. Please send your position paper to the directors.
Right. What if someone asks for a moderated caucus and you want an unmoderated caucus? What do you do? How do you get your motion recognized? So as I said, they'll take 3 motions at a time, right? So say someone raises a motion for a moderated caucus and you raise a motion for an unmoderated caucus. As Lawrence said, there's an order of disruption, and an unmoderated caucus will always get voted upon before the moderated caucus. And if the unmoderated caucus passes, the moderated caucus automatically fails by default. So you simply have to get yours passed by voting because the unmod will get voted upon first.
Next, are we supposed to speak on the agenda in the GSL? Yes, the whole point of the GSL is mainly to give your stance of the agenda to the whole committee. In the GSL, you're recommended to talk about your country's stance and what your country has done so far, and what your country's stance on the whole agenda is. You can also talk about solutions, but this is a general opening speech of your country.
But in later general speakers lists, such as we said, the general speakers list, when all motions fail, like I said, there's 3 motions. If all of them fail, the committee reverts to the general speakers list. And this could be at any time in committee. It will happen quite often in the middle of committee, towards the end of committee. And in these times, you could speak about, say, solutions, if that's what relevant in committee. Speak about whatever you think is relevant at that time in your general speakers list.
Can we raise a moderated caucus just to listen to others and not speak ourselves. So after you raise a moderated caucus, the chair will give you an option. You can either be the first or last speaker. So you cannot refrain from speaking if you raise the moderated caucus. But yeah, that answers your question. Um,
What
Abhi,
if
can
there's
you
only
move on
one
to?
motion? Yeah, one second. What if there's only one motion on the floor? Then that'll get voted upon. It won't pass by default. It still has to get voted and passed.
Next, moving on to more motions. You will have breaks between each committee session. Committee sessions are usually 2 hours, and you will have a break in between. In order to go to that break, you will have to adjourn the session. Now, how do you adjourn the session? The chair will ask, are there any motions on the floor? You raise your placard and say the delegate of XYZ would like to motion to adjourn session. Now, if this passes, you have now adjourned session for a limited time period.
Right. There's also a motion. This is very rarely used. When there's a moderated caucus and it's not going well, there's no speakers. There's a motion to table the present moderated caucus. The chair will ask for these only if the moderated caucus is not working out, and this is almost always asked for by the chairs. You can't raise your placard and motion for it on your own. But this is just a way to end the present moderated caucus.
Many people are asking where to get sample position papers or draft resolutions. There is a site called UNA USA. Please type in UNA USA position papers and you will get an extremely good sample of a position paper. And if you want resolutions, please type in UNA USA resolutions. You will get an extremely good example of a resolution.
All right, delegates, I've included the link to the sample position paper in the Showcase app. If you can just check that, you'll find the link.
What is the limited time period when the session is adjourned? This is essentially the length of the break. So say it's a half-an-hour break. The session is adjourned for half an hour. This is up to the chair and committee essentially. The chair could ask you to have a shorter break if he thinks committee needs more time, or if committee is going really well, he might give you an extra 5 minutes.
How do you add yourselves to a GSL? Now there are two ways to add yourself to the GSL. Firstly, the chair will ask for speakers to the GSL. You can raise your placards and the chair will add your name. The second way is you send a chit to the executive board saying the delegate of XYZ would like to add his name to the GSL. Please note that this can only be done in the GSL but can't be done during a moderated caucus. So this can only be done in the GSL. What if someone raises a motion to adjourn the session before the GSL? Motion to adjourn the session will be, the chair will give you a lot of time saying we will have a break now. We are looking for a motion to adjourn the session. This is when after a speech is done, the chair will ask for motions and you can raise your placard and then you will have to raise a motion to adjourn the session.
Right, you can't raise a motion to adjourn session whenever you want. It's only when the chair asks. Are you allowed to prompt the speaker when they are speaking? No, you are not. If you do, the chair will most likely gag you for influencing other delegates during their time as speakers. When do we
When is the social night and where? The social night would be in Oakridge Newton campus itself.
and it's 13th evening. We will provide dinner as well, and we'll be sending out the schedule soon. Um, right, when do we do blocks? So as I said, you lobby and make your blocks in unmoderated caucuses.
Um,
Um,
to get the format of a position paper, resolution paper, please visit the Showcase app. It should be in the side. If you press on Showcase and scroll down, there should be two links which say sample position paper and sample resolution. This should clear your doubts.
um, there's a delegate called Tej Malu. Delegate, I think you're having technical difficulties. Please refrain from asking. Continue.
Okay, guys. So now moving on to working papers. So working paper is essentially just a document where you list out your solutions in your block. Now these solutions don't have to have a particular format, as a working paper is pretty much an unofficial document meant to just guide your thought processes, and you would make this in your block. As it's informal, it doesn't have any sponsors. It just has supporters, which is just anyone that supports it. Um, so you would typically make this in about your second day.
Can can sponsor of one block be a sponsor of another? No, delegate. The sponsor. You can only sponsor one document, but you can be a signatory of how many you wish to.
Right. So now working papers are relatively unimportant when it compares to draft resolutions. So now after a working paper, you move on to draft resolutions, which again you would make in your blocks. Now this is essentially the executive document of your committee. It's what the whole committee is gearing towards. All the discussion and debate is put into this, where you put forward your solutions for the agenda at hand. Now it has a very specific format, which you can see in the links that we've shared with you guys at bestdelegate.com as well. So now the first thing that you'll know about draft resolutions is that they have sponsors, right? Sponsors are essentially the authors of a resolution that have done the most and put the most effort into it. You should always aim to be a sponsor. Typically, there will be 3 sponsors per draft resolution, and the sponsors will be allowed to present it when it comes to presenting it, and we'll have other benefits that we'll come to later. Next, you'd have signatories. Now, signatories aren't necessarily supporters of the draft resolution. They're just anyone that wants to discuss it. So while you can't be sponsor for 2 blocks, you can be signatory for how many ever blocks you want to. And this is just showing that you want to discuss this draft resolution, even if you don't support it. Then you move on to the clauses. Now, clause is essentially your medium for putting forward anything you want to in a draft resolution. First, you have preambulatory clauses. These are just simple clauses with no weightage. So these are just basically referencing past actions by, or for example, you could say recognizing the previous action taken by the United Nations, or condemning condemning certain actions. They don't hold any real weight. Don, you want to do operative clauses?
Sir, moving on to operative clauses. This is the main part of the resolution. Your operative clauses are your solutions, but they have to be structured extremely formally, and they should be starting with a few words. This list of words have been put up in Showcase again. Please check out Showcase for the format of a resolution, format of a position paper, and the words the clauses have to start with. Now, operator clauses are basically your solutions. They must be listed out. and you can have different subclauses for one clause. You must start with a clause, and if you want to explain the clause, do it in subclauses. Please explain everything about your clause. Make sure your clause answers the 5 W's and the H, which is who, what, when, where, why, and how. Now, this can be done in the subclauses, and your clause should mainly outline your solution. Your subclauses should end with a comma. Your clauses should end with a comma, and if your clauses end with a full stop, the resolution will not be discussed from that point onwards.
Right, adding on to what Tarn said when it comes to format, preambulatory clauses all end with a comma, and all your operative clauses end with a semicolon, while your last clause ends with a period, signifying that the resolution has come to an end. So now again, when it comes to operatives, be very detailed with your explanations, and also be careful because most committees are advisory committees. Therefore, you can't say stuff like forces or declares. The words that you typically use are urges, recommends, strongly recommends, to show that this is what your committee is supporting. Right, we have a question.
Next question, what is a working paper? Now, a working paper is basically a complete draft of your resolution. This is all your solutions just written on a paper. It will have no format whatsoever and should be put in bullet points. Now, the format would be starting off with working paper and whatever you want to name it, and below the supporters of this working paper, and then just number your solutions. You don't need to structure it whatsoever. This is basically a start to your resolution, so the whole committee knows how your resolution is going to turn out. In a working paper, should we write about solutions from the problems discussed in moderated caucuses or the agenda? The working paper should have solutions both from moderated caucuses and the agenda. It should have all your solutions written down in a no format, but just number them, and you don't need to structure them formally whatsoever.
Right. Will your block remain the same all the days? So your block is ever changing. It's essentially everyone that supports your ideas. So no, it won't remain the same. It might not even remain the same for the same hour. It can change at any time. Delegates can decide that, oh, I support that block, or I don't support this block anymore. I'm going to go support that block. So it's very fluid, and it's up to you as a delegate to ensure that people stay in your block or leave other blocks and join yours by what we call lobby, which is essentially convincing others that to join your side. Another question, for all 3 days, will we have to give a GSL speech? If yes, do they all have to be different? So firstly, all your GSL speeches should be different, because if they're not different, it shows that you're very limited in your research. And for all 3 days, you can give GSL speeches how many times as you want, how few or how many. You could speak 0 times or 20 times. So it's up to you to speak how many ever times you want.
There is a lot of confusion about the draft resolution. Now, if you go to showcase and scroll down, you will see a sample resolution. We would request all viewers to look at the sample resolution, and then if there are any more questions, ask us after viewing the sample resolution.
One more thing I'd just like to point out for any delegates that might be in the Security Council. The Security Council resolutions are very powerful as they're actually binding. If they pass, it has to happen. So be very careful in what you put in your Security Council clauses, as it's not very good to put stuff that might have very long impact, because it'll be. How many GSLs are there per day? That's again up to the delegates. Right, Don, move on.
Now, moving on to sponsors and signatories. So a draft resolution has what is called sponsors and signatories. Now, each block will make one resolution. Now, sponsors are the people who put the most work into the resolution, who gave the most solutions, and are basically the majority authors of the resolution. There can be a maximum of 3, maybe 4 sponsors per resolution. A signatory is anyone who agrees with the resolution. If you want to see it being discussed, you can signatory the resolution. It doesn't mean you're supporting it, but you just want to see it being discussed. Now, you can be a signatory to as many resolutions as you want, but you can only be a sponsor to one resolution. If you're a sponsor to one resolution, you can signatory the other resolutions as well. Now, resolutions in the end of the committee, after the discussion, resolutions have to be voted upon, which is another question. So this voting requires 2/3 of the committee. Now, how would you discuss a draft resolution? Firstly, your block has to motion to introduce the draft resolution. If that motion passes, you will move into discussion of the draft resolution. Now, this can be done in two different ways, either a question-answer session or a moderated caucus. A question-answer session is where two sponsors will come up to the dais and the committee will be asking questions. Now, the sponsors would have to answer all the questions. In a moderated caucus, everyone will get some amount of time to speak on the draft resolution itself.
Another less used method for a draft resolution, for me it's very short on time, the chair may recommend this. It's a 2-for, 2 against discussion, where 2 people will come forward to discuss for the draft resolution, while another 2 will come forward to speak against it. This is not very highly used, but it'll be used if committee has, like, say, 20 minutes left and there's still very little time left.
The working paper, do we send the working paper to the chair? The working paper is done in the committee itself, and it would be sent to the chair in a pen drive. Next, can you wear Western formals on second day? Yes, you could wear Western formals on second day, but second day is the ethnic wear day, so you could either wear Indian traditional clothing or Western formals. Can one sponsor
Yeah, that's what we call lobbying. One sponsor can convince another sponsor. It's not that likely to work, however, because a sponsor is the guy that created his whole resolution. So it would be, for example, like Bill Gates asking Steve Jobs to work for Microsoft. It's possible, but not very likely.
How many times do you recommend to speak in the GSL? So what we would recommend is, as soon as the chair asks for speakers in the GSL, raise your placard. It is extremely important to speak in an MUN, and you only get very few chances. And speaking in a GSL can make a very big difference. So after you're done speaking, you could also send in more chits adding your name to the GSL. But we would recommend you to, as soon as the chair asks for speakers, just raise your placard.
Would we have crisis debate? Yeah, we'll move on to that later.
So, guys, what a crisis basically is a real life. It's a simulation in which it will be a fake simulation of something serious going on in the world. Now, this will be relating to your agenda. For example, if your agenda is child labor, your crisis would be Nike has been caught using child labor in China. Now, what you guys would have to do is come up with solutions to that hypothetical situation. It is completely hypothetical and it is not real. But you still would have to come up with solutions to that agenda before you're done coming up with solutions to the main agenda. So first you would have to solve the crisis and then go back to your agenda. Now the crisis is extremely important, and this would require the committee to work together to come with another resolution for the crisis itself. So Abhi, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so when it comes to crises, the chair will provide updates, which is basically an update on what's going on, what's happening with the crisis. And if you've implemented some solutions, the chair might provide an update on how the solutions worked out, what effects they created. Now, crisis, we can't
So
tell you what's going
can
to
I
happen.
create a
Yeah.
can I create a fake problem and give a resolution to it? No, the chair would create the crisis. You would not have any role to play in it. It is up to the chair and the crisis director to create your crisis. But you will have to make a resolution to that crisis. The
Are we
answer
allowed
to
to
any of the crises would be a resolution.
counter draft resolution? I don't think we've made this clear, but you're allowed to have the committee will be allowed to have how many ever draft resolutions the committee wants. Or there could be 4 blocks, each providing their own draft resolution. So if you don't support one and you want to counter it, come up with your own draft resolution and attempt to get that passed. Um, so yeah, do you think we should move on to voting?
Can we take points from the background guide? So one thing to keep in mind is that the background guide is really just so that you can have a base for your research. We don't, it'll be pretty disrespectful to other delegates who have done lots of research to quote directly from the background guide.
Right. What do we do if the country assigned isn't well related to the agenda? So now this is going to be quite common as there aren't all the countries that are related to the agenda. When you're not related to the agenda, try and find any small connection possible, or try and research as to who your allies are, and if your allies are related to the agenda, support them. So say you're, I don't know, the United Kingdom, and you're not related to the agenda, but the United States is, and you're their ally. So you would support them, and you would try to further their agenda. And if your country is for some reason completely unrelated, with no allies related, which is highly unlikely, you can attempt to be neutral or find what stance you think your committee would be likely to support based on their interests. If no one is joining our block and no one is letting us to join their block. So if no one is joining your block, it's not likely that your block will succeed, as the draft resolution needs a certain amount of signatories to even be discussed. And when it comes to no one letting you join their block, that's not likely, as people are always eager for more supporters to their block, and there's pretty much no way they would refuse to allow you to join their block.
One delegate asked if you're allowed to read out from the GSL. Sorry, read out your GSL speech. Yes, delegate. It does not have to be extempo, or you don't have to memorize your speech. You can read out from a paper or your laptop.
Are you allowed to speak twice on the GSL? Yes. You're allowed to speak how many ever times you want on the GSL. And can anyone make a presidential statement? Right. So a presidential statement is a statement that a country releases during a crisis as a statement from their president, meaning it holds executive authority. You're basically stating that this is what the head of my country is stating regarding to the crisis. These can be made only during a crisis, and it's typically for countries that are extremely related to the agenda and want to release an official statement regarding their stance. Can we take our name off the GSL? Yes, you can take your name off the GSL.
So to what a resolution is, you would need two-thirds of the committee as signatories. So two-thirds of the committee has to be willing to discuss your paper. And again, the whole point of the MUN is to pass the resolution. So to pass the resolution, you need two-thirds of the committee to say yes. So when do we pass a chit? Sir, you can pass a chit at any time, but you have to give it to a volunteer, and you would have to write to whatever country you want to give it to and from whatever country you are. So please don't put stuff not related to committee in chits, as if you do so, they might be read by the executive board. Try keeping your chits related to the agenda. Can you explain the proper format of a resolution? So please go to Showcase. There you will find an option saying sample resolution. You will find resolutions there. Ali, can we start off with the voting?
Right. So now voting procedure is also very particular when it comes to MUNs. So firstly, again, as Tarn said, you would introduce your resolutions, right, before you discuss them. Now, the resolutions are voted upon in the order which they're introduced. So say there's 3 resolutions, they'll be voted upon in the orders that they're introduced, 1, 2, and 3. Now, the first question that you could raise is if you were to want your resolution to be voted upon first, you could raise a motion to reorder the voting list, to reorder the order in which they were introduced. So this is useful if you want to vote upon your draft resolution before everyone else's. Now, when it comes to voting itself, the main type of vote is roll call vote, wherein the chair will essentially call out countries as he does in the attendance, and everyone is allowed to vote in 5 different ways: yes, no, abstain, yes with rights, or no with rights. Now, yes, no are pretty much self-explanatory. Yes with rights is when you're saying yes and you're granted a 30-second speech to explain why you're saying yes. No with rights is same as no, but again, you're granted a 30 seconds to speech to explain why you're saying no. Now, abstain. This is what we were talking about at the beginning of this training session. Abstain is essentially you're saying that you can't decide that if you want to say yes or no. And abstain can only be used if you said you were present. If you said you were present at voting during attendance, during roll call, then you can only say yes or no. Again, someone has asked, what does abstain mean? So abstain, I'll say this one more time because it's very important, means you're not saying yes or no, you're just saying that you can't decide. Now this is used if your country's foreign policy won't let you decide, or especially in the Security Council, where the 5 main countries, USA, UK, China, France, and Russia, have a special power in the sense that if they say no, a resolution automatically fails. But say they didn't want to vote no, but don't also want to vote yes, they can vote abstain, saying that they don't support it and they're not against it. So now this is very useful if your country has a very neutral policy and is very unbiased in general forms. Now another form of voting that the committee can use before roll call vote is called dividing the question. In this case, the committee will vote upon each clause in the resolution, clause by clause, and all the clauses that pass individually are passed on to a final draft resolution, which is then voted upon by roll call vote. Any more questions on voting? What do you do if your country's foreign policy doesn't go well with your official allies? Well, normally your country's foreign policy will align with that of your allies, which is why you're allies. But in some rare cases, if it doesn't, uh, you, then in that case, they wouldn't be your allies. What if you need to use the toilet while the roll call is going on? Uh, yeah, try and hold it in because the roll call is very important and you shouldn't miss that. Does everyone who raises their placard get noticed for GSL or moderated caucuses? When it comes to the GSL, the chair will normally recognize everyone because it's an unlimited list. When it comes to moderated caucuses, the chair will recognize between 5 to 7 at a time, and then we'll ask for more speakers later.
We will be playing a small video to clear any confusion based on rules of procedure.
Yeah, one last question. Again, if your allies are on the opposing side, if the yeah, in that case, then you shouldn't consider them as your allies.
Avi, can you explain the different type? Guys, do you have any more questions? Where do we submit the position paper? You would have to send it to the chairs. Can GSL have points from the position paper? Yes, GSL can have points from the position paper. It is extremely recommended to have some because the position paper really expresses your views on the agenda. Again, we have another question here. What do you do if your country's foreign policy doesn't go well with your official allies? Your country's foreign policy is basically your country's enemies and allies. So you would have to know your country's allies, and so your foreign policy would have to align with your allies. Will there be charging ports? Yes, there will be charging ports to use. Next we have a question. Can we have the background guides? So the background guides have been put up on the website. Please check out oakjmun.in. Can we vote for our own resolution? Yes, sir, you have to vote for your own resolution. Because you made it, you will be voting yes for your resolution.
Right, if your country is not directly involved, and both the countries involved are your allies, who do you support? Now, this is a typical case of what we call a neutral country, right? A country that supports both sides of the conflict. So in this case, you should try and stay neutral in the conflict. You should try to not support either side too much, to refrain from overtly supporting either case. And this is a typical case of where you might want to abstain when you're voting for a resolution. So if you know your foreign policy and you know that you support allies that are on both different sides of the conflict, then make sure that you stay present and then try and abstain in formal resolution voting. There are no back.
Please go to the website, visit your committee's page, and then to the right, there should be an option which says background guide.
Do we have to form blocks only with our friends? No, this is in fact very discouraged. You do not form blocks based on who you know personally or who your actual friends are. Form blocks based on what countries they represent. If they're your allies, then support them. If they're not, then don't support them. Do not form blocks based on your friends, because in an MUN, you're not representing yourself or your friends. You're representing a country, and you support your country's allies.
Are we allowed to use internet on our phones? No delegate, any use of internet will result in you getting gagged from the committee and getting official warnings. Repeated use of internet will um, make us disregard you from any awards and you will be evicted from the conference. Can you try to lobby using cheats? Yes, lobbying using cheats is a very important part of lobbying. So even when you're in debate, you can keep lobbying while sending chits. Um, Guys, please start asking questions related to the MUN itself or any rules or procedure. Do the chits have to be written in diplomatic language? Yes, the chits do have to be written in diplomatic language with a clear written warning as to who you're sending it to and from which committee, from which country it is from. So it would be from USA to UK. That would be the format.
Are we allowed to carry bags to the conference? Yes, delegates, you are allowed to carry bags uh, to carry your stuff in.
Do we meet up with people from different committees? In the breaks, the tea breaks or the lunch, you will be able to meet up with delegates from different committees to socialize with them and during the social night. Um, the cri the resolution should depend on the crisis itself. Your crisis will be a real life simulation, but it is like a fake simulation of what is gonna happen. So it will be on the spot. This will test your thinking skills and your ability to make a resolution under a very short time restraint. So an answer to the resolution should be made up by the delegates themselves. For the debate, will
Uh,
ongoing events be used as a topic? Yes, ongoing events can be used as a topic. Ongoing events are very important, and you can use ongoing events as a reference to whatever it is you will be wanting to say.
how many gadgets can you get? Again, this is not limited. It's not exactly like school where you have a limit. You're allowed to bring pretty much whatever you want. We just don't recommend that you use internet in committee. Okay, for example, could the Pakistan on Kashmir event be a topic for debate? If this is in reference to will ongoing events be used in committee, then yes, this could be used in committee. It could be discussed in committee. In fact, it's highly likely that it will be discussed in committee if it's related to your agenda.
Can you use tools of oratory during GSL speeches, or do they have to be straight to the point? It depends to you. You could use it if needed, but again, be straight to the point and formal is highly recommended. Can you give an answer to any of the crises? A crisis again it depends on what the crisis is actually, and giving an answer to the crisis, that's how the chairs test your on the spot thinking. So we would not be giving any answers to any crises. Can we use the right to reply? Now, what a right to reply basically is if you believe that you were insulted, if your country was insulted by a certain delegate, you could raise what is known as a right to reply. However, a right to reply is based on the chair's discretion. If the chair does not accept your right to reply, you can force him to accept the right to reply. So this completely depends on the chair. So you would have to raise a right to reply, and the chair would have to agree to that right to reply. Um,
Okay, so one thing that we're going to cover now is called amendments, right? So now, when your resolution is introduced, your draft resolution, and when it's being discussed, the chair will open the floor to what's called amendments. Now, these are essentially changes to the draft resolution that are proposed by delegates. There are three types of amendments: addition, deletion, and modification of clauses. So you could send an amendment to add a clause to the draft resolution, send an amendment to delete a particular clause, or send an amendment to modify a particular clause. For example, say there's a clause and it says um, urges nations to enforce stricter anti-pollution policies, and someone doesn't like that, they could send an amendment to delete that particular clause. Now, if the sponsors agree to this, the sponsors can say yes, and the amendment is automatically passed in what's known as a friendly amendment. If they say no, it's passed to committee and the committee votes on it. Now, if there's a lot of amendments, if more than half the clauses in a draft resolution are amended, the draft resolution automatically fails. And the person who proposes an amendment does not lose points for it. It's looked very favorably upon, unless they're very frivolous amendments.
um, we are receiving many questions about where the background guides are. Please visit oakjmun.in. There should be an option called committees. Click on your committees, and to the right, there should be an option called background guides. There are two committees without background guides. These background guides should be put up by tonight. UNESCO and UNHCR and WHO's backgrounds will be put up by tonight. Get a signatory of a draft resolution, try to amend it. Yes, a signatory of a draft resolution should try to amend the draft resolution. A signatory basically means that you want to see it discussed, but it doesn't mean that you support it. What do we wear on day two? On day two, you would have to wear Indian ethnic wear, which would be a kurta. So, you could wear Western formals if you want to, but our theme for the night would be Indian social night. So, it would be recommended to wear Indian ethnic formals. Do you have to speak every meeting? You don't have to speak every meeting, but it is highly recommended to speak every meeting because you would get more recognition from the chairs, and speaking every meeting would give your points out to view for the whole committee. So it is recommended to speak whenever you get the chance to speak. Um, so if you don't have Indian ethnic wear, you could come in your Western formals as well. UNESCO's background guide should be up by tonight. Can we kick signatories out of the block? So signatories do not have to be in your block. Again, a signatory is just a person who wants to see your draft resolution being discussed. So they don't have to be in your block. They could be from the opposing blocks as well, but they just want to see your reso being discussed. So you can't kick them out of the block. But again, to pass your resolution, to see it being discussed, you need two-thirds of the committee as signatories. So it is useful to have everyone as your signatories. Next, if your laptop doesn't have charge, what do? Ma'am, there will be a lot of charging ports, so you could use them to charge your laptop. What prizes do we get? Um, there are four prizes, I believe. There should be best delegate, outstanding delegate. There will be two or three honorable mentions and quite a few verbal mentions. Are signatories unlimited in number? Signatories is basically your committee, and if you convince people that your resolution should be discussed, they can become your signatories. For every committee, there will be a set number of prizes. But again, the whole point of the MUN, of JMUN itself, is not for the prize, but for the experience and starting your MUN journey, because there's most of the MUNs are targeted towards 9th to 12th graders. So a prize is just a small part of the experience coming to JMUN. JMUN is mainly for kickstarting your journey to the MUN circuit. Does every block have a draft resolution? Yes, every block should have their own draft resolution, but you could decide to merge blocks with other authors, which is other sponsors. So if you merge a block, you would have one draft resolution. Will the chair throw gavels at us? Sir, our chair and IP are highly diplomatic and do not believe in methods such as throwing gavels. Our chair will do our best to moderate the committee and help you reach a point where they believe that you will make a feasible draft resolution. So you don't need to worry about any embarrassment from the IP or gavel throwing by the chairs. Hmm. Can blocks be handwritten? See, blocks are basically your group of allies. So a block again would be your group coming together and making one draft resolution. If each block has their own draft resolution, how do I come up with the final resolution? Now, each block would have their own resolution. After it's discussed, there's something called voting. Now, for a resolution to pass, you need about two-thirds of the committee. So, whichever one is sent in first will get voted upon first. Now, if your resolution is sent in first and it is and two-thirds of the committee vote for the resolution, the committee has passed and the second resolution won't even be voted upon. But if your resolution fails, they will move on to voting for the second resolution. So you would need two-thirds of the resolution. The resolution and working paper should be typed on a computer on Microsoft Word and then put in a USB and given to the executive board. Yes, one resolution per committee only passes. Or if all resolutions fail, the whole committee fails. This is very common, especially in Security Council, where there are veto powers, which is basically the permanent 5 members. If one of the permanent 5 members vote no for a resolution, the resolution fails, even if it has majority members in their block. If there are any questions, please send them in right now. We would be ending the stream in 5 more minutes. This would be your last chance to ask us any questions related to rules of procedure or the conference itself. Now, for the font size for firstly the position paper and the resolutions, we're expecting Times New Roman and font size 12. Times New Roman and font size 12. So please note for a position paper, we would want 2 pages, not more than 2 pages, of font size 12 Times New Roman, but the resolution can have as many number of pages as you would want, but the font and the size would remain the same. No, sir, this is a junior conference. We would not have any cash prizes. We would be ending the stream in 3 more minutes. If there are any last minute questions, please ask. Why do the SC countries get so much power? Sir, the Security Council's mandate states that the permanent 5 members would get veto powers, and the whole of the Security Council had agreed to that terms. So the 5 countries would be Russian Federation, USA, UK, France, and USA, UK, France, Russian Federation, and China. Sorry about that, technical difficulties. Just to repeat, it would be USA, UK, China, France, and Russia. So these 5 countries have what is called veto power. So if a resolution is presented and they vote no, the whole resolution would fail. This was a term agreed by the Security Council and is put forward today in all MUNs. So if you are making a resolution in the SC, it would most likely be vetoed against because all the veto powers are not on the same side. So SC is a committee which has a high rate of failing. So don't be disheartened if you're an SC and your resolution fails. This is mainly due to your foreign policy. When is the last day to pay? Oh, ma'am, the last day to pay would be tomorrow, Monday. You could either make a wire transfer to the bank details which have been sent forward to all delegates, or come to Oakridge International School Newton campus and pay in the accounts department. The stream should be ending in 2 more minutes. Does every block have a draft resolution? Yes, every block should have their own draft resolution. However, if you decide to merge 2 blocks, which means 2 blocks would come together to form a bigger block, then 1 resolution is needed. This stream will be ending now. Thank you for your participation in our webinar. We have appreciated all your questions and hope we have addressed all your concerns. Further reference of this video should be put into YouTube, and all questions and answers should be presented over there. Any more questions, feel free to reach out to us at secgen@oakjmun.in or policy@oakjmun.in. We thank you for your interest in OakJMUN 2016, and we hope to see you at the conference. Please note that you would have to wear Western formal wear on the first and third days, and ethnic wear, Indian ethnic wear on the second day. The last day for payment should be tomorrow, Monday, at either the school or make the wire deposit. We thank you for your interest in OakJMUN 2016 and hope to see you guys at the conference.
Also, one thing that delegates should know is that on our website, www.oakjmun.in, under the conference page, there is under the conference menu, there is a page called resources. In that page, you will find 2 videos which will help clear your doubts, and also a very long document that covers MUN procedure in length. So you can refer to those as well.
We will be screen sharing the Facebook page for your convenience. Could you also please show them how to reach the background guides?
All right, so you just need to go to your committee. For example, if I was in DISAC, I just have to go to the DISAC page and then click on this button over here, and then I'll be able to access the background guide.
So guys, we hope this answers all of your questions. We will be ending this stream right now. So any more questions, feel free to reach out to us at secgen@oakjmun.in or policy@oakjmun.in. Thank you.